it's almost spring. Like, that completely snuck up on me. I just looked at the calendar and it's just like, yeah, spring's next week or the week after. And just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like January was like a decade.
Yeah, really.
And then February, a mere blink in the eye.
When you're in the middle of the seasonal affective disorder cloud, it feels like it's really never going to end. And then all of a sudden it's March, and we're getting a little bit less snow, although we've still got some to come. And we're just a little bit closer to more sunny and warmer days.
Well, I saw a chart that was, and this is not going to matter to 99% of the listeners that don't live here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but I saw a chart that was like, it's like the sonic cycle, but for weather in Halifax. And according to that chart, we are in something called Fool's Spring. Which is the fake spring, and then it's gonna get really cold again, and then real spring will come.
Yeah, you know what? I've been through Fool's Spring enough to like. I think there's something to that. So you're right. Shouldn't get my hopes up too much, but I'll be interested to see if we can hopefully get towards a bit of warmer weather. But yeah, I should definitely not take it for granted. Welcome, everybody. Hope it's warm where you are, or, just comfortable enough. This is Elwood City Limits. My name is Will Young, and that's Lucas Mancini, my co-host.
That's me.
Yeah, so we've got ourselves actually a little bit of a lighter week in terms of we only have one email in the mailbag, so it's going to be
let's get into it. We're going to give this sole email the due diligence it deserves, as our one communique. It's going to get some extra special attention from yours truly.
Now, of course, this was for the episode where you weren't here.
Ironically, but you know what? That's I'm using 110% of my brain. I took the Limitless pill because I'm about to answer questions that have nothing to do with me.
What a reference! Did you see Limitless when it came out?
Not only did I not see Limitless. I also have not seen the short-lived Limitless, the TV series.
TV series, right.
Limitless. I just really quick want to see how many episodes of Limitless, the TV show. You want to guess if there's more than one season of Limitless, the TV show? I already know the answer because I just Googled it, but I'll tell you my original guess was there was not more than one season of the Limitless TV show.
I'm going to guess there's 12 episodes.
No, a little bit more. It's network TV, baby. This is not prestige
18.
TV. So there's actually 22 whopping episodes.
All right.
Of, the way the internet, oh my gosh, the passing of time is really crazy, Will. So first of all, let me tell you something about Limitless. The film Limitless came out 9 years ago.
So 2011?
2011.
Yeah, that sounds like a 2011 movie.
It's almost been a decade since the movie Limitless. I was in high school when Limitless came out. That's crazy.
I was exiting university.
And then Limitless, the TV show, predates the Trump presidency, coming out April 26th, 2016. Don't know what made them think that, 5 years later, time to really, cash in on that, all the big limit heads out there.
Yeah, we would be in the middle of the Obama salad days in that one.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh.
I'm getting
sucked into this Limitless Wikipedia page for Limitless the series. It's apparently it's a nootropic drug. They specify.
So it makes you poop. So it just makes you poop yourself. You unlock 10% of your. You unlock the other 90% of your brain, and you can't stop pooping yourself.
It's like Joe Rogan's talking about if you don't like caveman coffee, on it has all kinds of great products such as the Limitless pill.
All right, let's head over to that email we talked about so we can dig ourselves out of this limitless hole. Over at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. That's where we get all kinds of communiques from listeners such as yourself about many different topics, and this one has to do with last week's episode that I did with Andrew Power of the Samurai Pizza Cast. It's from Michelle. Hey guys, greetings again. Was listening to your latest episode. Wanted to let you know that if you're ever in New Jersey, you have to try our tomatoes. I know that taking a bite out of a tomato like it's an apple sounds unappealing, but here in New Jersey, we are known for the sweetest tomatoes and corn you will ever eat. It's called the Garden State for a reason. I have fond memories of picking ripe tomatoes out of my dad's garden when I was little and eating them like apples. If you try them, you have to get them from a farmer's market or something because they are not the same from the grocery store. Also, if you do ever make your way here, make sure you also try our pizza, bagels, and Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwiches. I know you may not know what Taylor ham is, but trust me, it's to die for. Michelle also says that they caught up on the episodes since they started listening 8 months ago, listening in real time. Kind of miss binging them on my commute to and from work each day. Well, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so Lucas, we were talking about how inherently frankly disgusting eating raw tomatoes like a piece of fruit that you get out of the fridge is, but maybe that's more of a regional thing than I gave it credit for.
No, Will, you see what happens when the inmates were running out the asylum in my absence when it comes to food opinions. Because I too am an eat a tomato like an apple guy.
No.
Yes, Will, my Mediterranean blood, it flows with my nana's sauce.
Oh,
it's pure
okay.
marinara. Let me tell you something. What you know about olives, Will? You don't know nothing about olives, okay?
Well, olives you're supposed to eat them like that.
I'm just saying, it's all that Mediterranean diet, baby. And do you know what's in that diet is a GD tomato. Right off the vine. Juicy as all hell.
Huh. Well, I'm not.
You don't got your buddy to back you up on this one.
He's your friend too.
That's true. I know.
No, I don't. I mean, if we get to 40 patrons, I'll eat a tomato like an apple.
Wow,
no,
there we go. I love how like the Patreon goals always seem to be you torturing yourself, whether it's the Sonic movie or fruit.
I give good reactions. I know that about myself. I'm only half serious about that. But you know what? If we do hit like a milestone on Patreon or maybe Twitter or something at some point, I'll give that a try. It's one tomato. It won't hurt me. It's just I don't know. It just seems weird. But you know what? I thought it was weird before I mixed Crown Royal with Sprite, and that is actually really, really good. So you know what? Maybe I'm missing out.
That I don't know about that.
Oh no, dude, it's great.
I don't like Crown Royal. First of all, I don't really like mixed drinks with pop. And then secondly, I don't really like Crown Royal. So
all right, well, it's if you're into that sort of thing, would recommend, or any.
Does that have like a kitschy name?
No, I just heard it in a country song one time, and I was like, that can't be good. And it turns out that that in my opinion, it was.
Like, did you know the real name of a vodka cran? This is one of my favorite.
No, I only know it as vodka cran.
That's right? You go to I'm sure that if you went to a bar and ordered this, the person would call you an asshole, because everybody just says vodka cran. But apparently it's called a Cape Cod or a Cape Codder.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
I've never had vodka cran before. I'm not much for cranberry.
What? Whoa! That's my go-to, bro.
Okay.
You roll up, get listen, maturity, Will, is all about not being shamed for what you like. You know what I mean? And I think we talk a little bit about that. Actually leads us into this Arthur episode we're about to talk about a little bit. People will try and tell you, people who I don't value their opinion will say things like, a vodka cran is a girl's drink. And to that I say, hell yeah, that's a compliment as far as I'm concerned.
Lucas, you're talking to somebody who I bought a whole bottle of Girls' Night Out mimosa. Mimosa? Yeah, it tastes. Look,
the Girls' Night Out stuff is foul.
Look, it smelled like pee, but I drank it because I was curious, and I don't care that it said girls on it. But yeah, it smelled like pee. It was weird.
We're way off topic this week, but you know what? We don't have very many emails, and I feel like we're not going to actually have that much to say about these episodes, so that's fine.
Yeah, it's all good.
On that note, I feel like this is girls' night out adjacent. It's like the girls' night out for guys. Have you seen this, like, the Barstool, like, pink vodka that's been going around?
Oh, the hockey one?
Yeah, the Spit and Chicklets one.
Yeah.
I've been at like 2 house parties since that came out, and it always makes an appearance. And that stuff is foul. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, everybody who's hyping it up. But I'm not like a sugary drink guy. Like I like the vodka sodas, like the blue. Again, this is not going to matter to anybody who's not from here.
Because they're distinctly not sugary.
Like, because they're not sweet. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I like
Okay.
a mixed drink that isn't overtly sweet. So that pink vodka stuff is like, oh, I thought it was grody. This is all to say that a double vodka cran is just nice. Double vodka cran in a short glass. Hello.
I do like a little bit more sugar. There's only so much kind of bitter I can take in my drink. But there's also, like, I have a limit to sugar. There was a while when I over here in Nova Scotia, when you turn 19, you're able to start drinking. And when I did, my gateway drink was Mike's Hard Lemonade, and it's various things there, and also around the time when Smirnoff Ice was really popular. I drank that for a while, and then after a while, I was just like, "This is too much sugar," so I had to kind of stop.
Smirnoff Ice leaves like a film on my teeth.
Yeah, it's not so good these days, but I still like a little bit of sugar. I was curious about that pink Spit and Chicklets thing, but maybe I'll save my money.
Maybe you might like it, Will, and then we could have we'll have you eat a tomato and then wash it down with the Spit and Chicklets pink vodka.
Wow. Stay tuned.
Now that's a Caesar if I ever did hear one.
Okay. On that disgusting note, let me cleanse my palate by taking a look at our list of patrons here on patreon.com/Elwood City Limits, who have made such things as the Sonic the Hedgehog review possible, which actually came out last week. And if you haven't heard, there is a free preview of it on this very feed. It's about 5 minutes of our over an hour-long review, which you can check out. But our patrons have heard the whole thing, and then that includes patrons like Aaron DeFilippo, Alex, Andrew Power, one of our esteemed guests, Caitlin Harrington, Chandra LaFave Boaton, Christine Wong, Sierra S., Dan Mike Dawson Silva, Emily K., Froppy, Ian Collis, Jake Bailey, Joe Sue, John DeLong, John Griswold, Josias Melendez, Kat and Kaylin Krogull, Kevin Noon, Kristen, Leanne S., Light Relentless, Macy Ball, Maddow Media, Marlo Stanfield, Matt, Michaela Gibson, Pretty Cool Stairs, Rachel Pearson, Riley Stevens, Shayna Bennett, Shelby Eden Dawkins Law, Stella, Teresa, William, and William, Minnesota. Thanks, everybody. And it's time for us to get into this episode of Arthur, which is indeed all about liking what you like. In fact, it's called Lights, Camera, Opera. Had no idea what this was, but it's a Muffy episode. It's a straight-up Muffy episode. And in fact, we do get started on this note right away when Arthur's cold open is all about there seems to be things that adults like and things that kids like, and never the twain shall meet.
And immediately is this episode dated. That was like, this episode predates Marvel movies. It's like, I feel like this has been less true now than ever. In terms of, like, we just have this culture where everybody likes everything.
It couldn't have predicted the shift in popular culture towards, like, well, nostalgia and pandering at times, or at least capitalizing on people's childhood memories, and how a lot of our entertainment
bronies to Marvel
to video game movies.
Adults be out here liking kids stuff. Exactly. Detective Pikachu, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Arthur. A podcast about Arthur from 2 adults.
Yeah, we are part of this culture that apparently doesn't exist when this episode aired.
Yes, I adults liking adult stuff and kids liking kid stuff has never been less true.
You're absolutely right. And Arthur's kind of in this art gallery, and the whole thing is that, like, well, adults like art and kids Not so much. One of his examples of what adults like is his mom and his dad took him to see a movie called Il Stranieri, which is Italian for the foreigners. I looked it up, and they have this like amazing. It's so great. Their vague description of the ending of this fake Italian movie.
It sounds like Evangeline.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because it's like Evangeline's about like they never meet each other. Like, well, they fall in love, but then they're separated. But then like they spend their whole lives like almost just missing each other, and then they like, you know what I mean? That's like how Evangeline goes.
Okay.
I'm not a big Van head or anything, but I believe that is how they plot. And so Arthur's parents are sort of waxing poetic about like, oh, these like two strangers who never meet. And that's why it's so sad.
And Arthur's taking it literally. He's like, I don't get it. He just put the coin in the fountain and walked away. And just his brain isn't developed to understand the subtext at that point.
I was disappointed to see this wasn't a real movie, though. But I do really like this gag. Like, you could insert this with, like, any European. Like, you know, it could be 8.5. It could be, it could be Breathless. You show, like, some kids some hoity-toity foreign film, they're probably not gonna like it.
Yeah, for sure. And I really liked the vague description of like what happens at the end. Like you could do that with almost any like art film of the last 50 years, and like it's not nearly as effective if you explain it than if you actually experience it. So I liked their kind of thinking that up. Muffy is in the cold open here, and she comes across a painting in this fictional art gallery. And she says, I love how it expresses the dialectic between form and formlessness. Just really struggling with it. I thought that was really funny. And so this whole thing is kind of based around how, and like at the end, Mr. Crosswire buys the art piece, and, Muffy pretends that she loves it, but she doesn't really understand it. So the entire plot of this episode comes across pretty early. Muffy is given tickets to what she thinks is the boy band. Was it like Teen Dream or something like that?
Oh, I don't remember.
I wish. Yeah, I forgot to write that down.
B44?
Yeah. She thinks that it's tickets to a boy band, but actually it's tickets to the opera Carmen, which I found a little odd. I didn't, Ed Crosswire and the Crosswires are obviously like rich, but I didn't think that Ed Crosswire, the owner of a used car lot, is like go to the opera rich.
Well, I mean, I have two kind of takes on that. First of all, he definitely is go to the opera rich. You've seen the man's house.
True.
He's probably the most successful used car salesman alive.
It's probably the most cultured used car salesman alive too.
So that's my second point is I do think they can afford it because look at their McMansion. Mm-hmm. But I think Ed Crosswire maybe isn't so much going to the opera because he likes it. He's going to the opera to be seen. A
status symbol. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, but as we kind of find out later, I think he does engage with it on some level. And Muffy's mother is also very much like, oh, I love the opera, and Rodney Gilfrey is performing. I wish I could go. So they do seem to enjoy it on some level. But yeah, I could definitely see that as well. So Muffy's kind of not sold on it. She's doesn't even really know what opera is. So she goes to get a new dress with Francine and Prunella. By the way, have we encountered Prunella's new voice before?
I'm not sure. I didn't even notice that it had changed. We see Prunella so not though. You know what? OG Prunella has a pretty distinct voice. So yeah, I guess the new person did a good job.
It's a little bit sharper. It's not bad. This new voice isn't bad. I just kind of prefer the old one, but it's close enough that it's not offensive or anything. So Prunella is like explaining while Muffy is getting a new dress of like, operas are like 4 hours long. I fell asleep in the first act, then woke up in the third act, and then there was a whole other act. So Muffy's like, she's worried she's going to be, bored to tears during this. And this actually leads to her asking Bailey to sing her a bit of opera. We get some Bruce Dinsmore as Bailey, which I really enjoy his performance. It's so different from both Dad and Binky. It's, kind of the affected British take on it. And he does sing a little bit of opera, which is very impressive.
No, Bailey continues to be a delight.
She ends up having a dream that night of her going to go see the opera and then accidentally falling asleep and kind of being embarrassed when even the opera performers themselves notice. There are different parts in this episode. I wrote this note at this point before we even got to the explicit Carmen parts, and I said, I wonder how tough or how fun it was to write an actual part of an opera. Because you can tell by kind of listening to it that the opera in Muffy's dream, which is called The Barber of the Valkyries, it's just kind of like Italian words, just kind of sung. Like, and I don't know if they necessarily say anything.
Oh, so it's not based on because the lady in. And this is really showing my uncultured side, so apologies because I'm about to get a bunch of things wrong. But the lady in, like, for lack of a better term, like Viking gear or whatever.
Yeah, the Valkyrie.
The titular Valkyrie. I had recognized her as, like, the famous phrase, "It's not over till the fat lady sings."
Yes.
Usually in pop culture, when people are showing kind of lampooning opera, or like there has to be a part where someone sees opera, you always see that kind of get up and outfit, and that's kind of where that phrase comes from. "It's not over till the fat lady sings." So I just assumed this was from, like, the real life opera.
I don't know if I feel like this is a joke on an opera. I don't know if it's like the Barber of the Valkyries just kind of sounds silly. So I assumed that this was fake. But then again, I know very little about opera. The next day at school, we actually get, of course.
I'm thank God for the internet, because we are going to.
What's happening?
We're figuring out if this opera's real, baby.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The tone of voice you took, I was like, oh, did your mic stop working, or did your internet go out?
No. It's just I'm deadly serious about getting to the bottom of this. But it turns out that figuring out if this is real is actually slightly more involved than I had originally believed. Okay, so "It's not over till the fat lady sings" is not referring to a specific opera. It turns out, like, usually the heavier set lady in olden times was the one with the best voice, and so she would have a big solo at the end, and a Valkyrie is a popular sort of character type in these older opera. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Will, me and you were really learning with this one. Just you and I and all the children watching this PBS show. It's really getting a hefty, heaping dose of culture.
Well, and I wonder if we have any of our listeners who are a bit more knowledgeable about opera. I'm sure we'll hear from them once this episode goes up, and we welcome that.
Yes, please do. Please explain.
I'll tell you who does know about opera, and that's Binky Barnes. The next day at school, he overhears that Muffy is going to go see Carmen, and Binky says, it's an opera about, revenge, betrayal, and deceit. It's sort of like professional wrestling, but set to great music. To which I was like, Binky, you got to go on YouTube and watch some WWF Desire videos.
I was just going to say,
professional wrestling set to great music.
I was just going to say, Binky has obviously never seen the WWF My Sacrifice video, because that is exactly what Desire, betrayal, deceit. It's all there.
Yeah, and in a comfortable 3.5 minute package.
Exactly.
The history of the WWF set to "Lonely Road of Faith" by Kid Rock.
Exactly.
Now that's
obviously
opera.
Binky has never heard Randy Orton's first theme.
Hey, nothing you can say.
So good. You know what I mean?
So
Binky knows nothing of basic thugonomics.
Binky knows he's interacted with Carmen before. Also, I read Carmen in university. It is indeed very good.
Humble flex.
Yeah, and Binky is kind of ends up explaining the plot of Carmen to Muffy after school while they listen to the album, and it's about this soldier who falls in love with this woman. Didn't want to say the G slur, named Carmen, and he kind of gets around to it, and then in the end, well, bad stuff happens. You don't need to. We'll get to that part. And it's like, yeah, because Carmen is killed in the end. So Binky kind of steps around that. I remember they did that in an earlier episode with Romeo and Juliet. They're just like, yeah, it doesn't turn out well for them. And it's just
that, and that's I think a graceful way of kind of acknowledging, like, I would love to see an Arthur like adaptation of like Reservoir Dogs or something, where they're just like, let's just say it doesn't work out for most of them.
Yeah. And this is where we get, so Binky puts on the CD of an opera performance of Carmen, and like I wrote here, oh my God, they're doing Carmen. Like you're probably familiar with like the tune of,
yeah,
like
that's I recognize the tune.
And so on and so forth. So you probably heard that in like maybe a commercial or a backing musical track before, but they literally like take a couple of the parts of Carmen and write it around this kind of imaginative dream that Muffy has, where she is Carmen and Binky is the other, like the male main character.
And you know what? All this stuff is delightful. Like the stuff with like Buster and George singing, and all the stuff with Binky. Like this stuff's really fun.
I agree. I really liked this, and
even for me as someone who was not like I knew the tune, like you said, but I'm not that familiar with the source material. I still enjoyed this quite a bit.
I'm really curious to talk to people who did this episode, because I wondered what this was like to sing and to write. Like, because they're not like, doing the full on, opera baritone, that kind of thing. They're singing normally, but I wondered what it was like to interact with Carmen in this way, and if it was challenging to write, because it's hard to kind of retrofit your lyrics into a pre-existing melody, like it doesn't fit all the way, but it's still very interesting, and I was really glad that they were trying. And I also said the staging of this with all of the kind of like the dingy setting, the soldiers, the women in dresses reminded me of the Les Mis movie. The most recent one.
It's funny. I've been what with the American election, I've been thinking about the Les Mis movie a lot lately and watching a bunch of scenes from the Les Mis movie. Have you heard the people singing the songs of Angry Men?
As in the revolution aspect.
And it reminded me of that as well. And I was like, in fact, I had a very similar thought where it's like, I'd love to see, an Arthur take on Les Mis. That'd be fun.
Yes, me too.
I feel like, did we talk about Les Mis last week?
Well, maybe recently.
I remember you doing the Russell Crowe voice, like, very recently.
Oh, yeah, well, you basically just say Russell Crowe in my presence, and then it goes to that. Okay, so, like, Binky's Valjean, obviously,
Ooh.
And DW is probably Cosette.
Oh, so Mr. Rapper's got to be the Russell Crowe.
Javert.
Javert.
Yes. Yeah. These actually fit pretty easily in there.
Francine would be, I'm sorry, I don't know the names. Francine's like the girl that's getting, she's simping out. She's the one that like likes the guy, but she's getting ignored.
You're not wrong.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. And sorry, I'm looking up the characters now. I'm sorry.
Ooh, the Tibbles are like the two gross people that have that like one song that's like ba ba da ba da 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 da. So, that's or like DW and someone else would be those two.
Right. So you're thinking of Eponine, and DW is Cosette, which means that Mom Reed would be Fantine, the Anne Hathaway role, or maybe We also need a Marius.
I'm starting to draw a blank. I don't know the character names that well. I just know them as their actors in the adaptation.
the what's his name? The guy who sounds like he's got a frog in his throat. The guy who was in Jupiter Rising or Jupiter Ascending.
Oh gosh. That sure doesn't help me.
I keep wanting to say Alfie. No, it's not Alfie. It's I'm sorry, the listener. You're probably going crazy yelling at your podcast of I'm really trying here.
This is a wild one, Will. We're talking about Limitless. We're talking about Jupiter Ascending.
Eddie Redmayne.
I love. Oh my god. He's in that movie?
Yeah, he's Marius. He's like one of the main
No,
male roles.
He's in Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah, he's the bad guy.
Dude, I know him as like, I don't know.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them?
Yeah, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Or the Stephen Hawking movie.
Oh, yeah.
The
Danish Girl?
The Danish Girl. Man, I should watch Jupiter Ascending. I bet for the same reason I bet I would like Cats, I bet I would love Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, dude. I got like 10 minutes into Cats, and I'm like, this isn't even fun bad. This is just awful. I couldn't do it.
I see, for some reason, I trust you have good taste, Will, but for some reason I'm inclined not to believe you.
Well, and hey, like, Jen and I watched...
Did you see, what was that other crazy Wachowski movie? What's the one where Tom Hanks is like a bunch of different people?
Oh, Cloud Atlas.
Did you like Cloud Atlas?
Never saw it. I read some of the book for school once, and I don't remember it at all. I've only seen like reviews of Cloud Atlas. And for what it's worth, I don't like Jupiter Ascending. That was also like, I'm more bored than having fun at how bad this is. Jenna loved it. She thought it was a hoot.
Did you see Alita Battle Angel?
You know what? I actually just watched it last week.
Well, again, I'm glad that we don't have that much to talk about this week because we're all over the place. What did you think of Alita? So full disclosure, I did fall asleep 2/3 of the way through that movie because I think I had done an all-nighter the night before I watched it, but I saw it in theaters.
You missed the other 7 plots they were trying to cram into that thing.
Well, so that's the crazy thing about that movie is that it is frame by frame, picture perfect, accurate to the manga.
Yeah,
and so that's why it feels so crazy is because it's like chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the manga, and then they're like, and now we want to do the racing part because that's what people know about from the manga, so we're gonna skip to chapter 12.
Right.
That being said, as you know, as much as the acting was kind of bad and the writing was kind of bad, and like you said, they try to put too much in it. I was delighted the whole time because I was like, man.
The whole time you were awake.
Movies like the whole time I was awake, I was like, movies like this do not get made anymore, and it is great that this movie's gotten made. I the whole time I was like, I can't believe these madmen made this freaking movie. I was like, I can't believe like a man in a studio whose whole job is to be like, I need to make money off films was like, yeah, here's some money for this movie. So I was just delighted by the insanity and the chaos, but it turns out it worked out because that movie was big in Asia. So, but I liked it.
I thought it was all right. Like, I definitely saw that from the outside when it first came out, and I'm like, that looks like garbage. And I feel like a lot of reactions to stuff these days are very extreme from the outset of like they want to make you think that it's the best or it's the worst, and it's definitely neither of those things. But I wouldn't say it's even necessarily all that bad. You know, it's funny. You say it's like a movie that doesn't get made anymore. I felt like it was, there's some violence in there. There's a few swears and all that kind of stuff. But I felt like this is a great, like, baby's first PG-13 movie. I thought that this is good for like somebody who is maybe 10. Like it's a little bit above their maturity level, but it's also inviting enough with like there's action scenes and everything looks really visually interesting, and there's like a simple enough story you can follow that like if I saw that when I was younger, if I was like 11 or 12 and I saw that, I'd probably think that was the best movie I ever saw.
Man, like, I think that's so many times. Like when I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, oh, if I was 9 when I saw this movie, it'd be my favorite movie in the world.
Sure.
But yeah, like it turns out this episode of Elwood City Limits is the middling science fiction cast. What was that episode? What was that movie where the guy goes to Mars? The Disney one where they spent $1 bajillion and nobody saw it.
Oh, John Carter.
John Carter. Did you ever see John Carter?
No, but friends of mine did, and they were like the only people in the theater.
I feel like
I think
I've just realized that I I love stupid science fiction movies. I think I'm turning into like a boomer dad who just watches reruns of TNG and terrible science fiction films because I feel like they don't make stupid science fiction movies anymore. I should go see John Carter because I bet I would like it. What was oh gosh, there was another one recently that the Jean-Luc Besson movie.
Valerian and the City
I
of
bet I'd love that movie. I bet I'd be like delighted by how like silly that movie looks.
Probably. I mean, it's funny you say that. There is a lot of like science fiction has to be a certain way right now. So there's not a whole lot of those, those wide swings that we used to see when we were younger of like, like thinking about like a movie like Event Horizon. I'm not crazy about Event Horizon, but like
I love Event Horizon.
I know, and I'm in the minority on that, but like a sci-fi horror film like that just goes buck wild is really rare because a lot of times science fiction is now we have to do with a bit more like serious science fiction with like Interstellar or to a lesser degree on the seriousness Ad Astra and stuff like that.
Or like The Martian, you're right. It's all kind of like gravity tier.
And
but you know what? We're going to buck that trend this December. My most anticipated film of the year, Dune.
Oh yeah. You've become a big Dune head this year.
I'm in love with it. I'm all about Dune. I'm following like Dune concept art, like Twitter accounts. I'm like reading the book. I'm all in on friendship ended with Star Wars. Let me introduce you to my new best friend, Dune.
Well, and Denis Villeneuve.
Yes,
the best director that you could pick for that. I rewatched Blade Runner 2049 recently. I love that movie so much. It's so good. It looks so beautiful. Oh my god, I love it so much. And I'm not even that big a fan of the original Blade Runner. I love 2049 so much more than the original, which I feel like I'm in the minority for. Anyway, back to Carmen.
Yes.
All because I said that the staging reminds me of the Les Mis movie. Anyway, the gist of Muffy's kind of dreaming through a lot of the songs, and you're hearing it from the Arthur voices, and I think that's pretty cool. And there is an appearance here from special guest Rodney Gilfrey, who is an American opera baritone who has also done a lot of musicals as well. And, of course, you recognize him right away. He's got the almost stereotypical opera voice, and he kind of pops up in Muffy's dream, and he ends up playing the lead in Carmen, in the Elwood City production of Carmen later.
At first I thought he was Francine's dad.
He does have a very similar character model to him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
more hair, I suppose. A better hairline, but he still just kind of looks like Francine's dad.
I wish it were Oliver. I wish it was like Oliver was actually a trained opera singer. So Muffy still, like, she ends up having this dream, and she was like, "That's amazing! Like, I loved that." But she's still a little skeptical about whether or not she'll be able to enjoy opera or stay awake. She kind of has this conversation with her mom, so it's just Muffy and her dad going. In fact, she even gives her opera glasses, which I don't think I've ever seen opera glasses in real life. I've always seen them in cartoons or in movies as like, oh, what's going on over there? Like, like a rich signifier, kind of like going to the opera is.
It's true. It's even crazier. Like in cartoons, like having them at the opera, I guess, is like a socially acceptable. But you're right. Cartoons have led me to believe that like rich people are just rocking those 24/7.
Right, it's like a monocle.
If
like
they want to be nosy.
It's like the only time I see a monocle these days is like the Butcher on AEW, and like that's a professional wrestler. So,
or if you want to be really rude to someone when they say something that you know is incorrect, and you just respond with the monocle emoji.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's it. You're right. That's where I see it too. Professional wrestling and Twitter. So basically the idea here is like Muffy is she's concerned that she won't be able to understand anything because it's all sung in Italian, but it's pretty simple. The message is we literally get like a you never know until you try from Muffy's mom. I'm always here for a you never know until you try story. Like it reminds me, like I imagine what this is what I was like before I watched like a subbed anime for the first time, or wrestling in another language, or like interacted with foreign films through my film degree. Like it just kind of like, oh, is the language barrier, like I really feel like that's going to be distracting, and then it's like, no, at least for me it isn't. It's always been like, wow, they're telling amazing stories, and language is not really the issue here, for one reason or another, depending on the medium that you're interacting with.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense.
So, and it leads pretty much the rest of the episode is Muffy watching Carmen and having these very like emotional reactions to it. She loves the music. She's, gasping at the appropriate time. She and Ed cry at the end. So it turns out that she actually really loves opera. And it's a very sweet moment where like they're both, crying at the end and it's when Muffy is like gasping at the sword fight and Ed grabs her hand and they both kind of watch it together. It's a very nice bonding moment and a very humane moment for Ed and for Muffy that we don't really see that much. And the end of the episode is Muffy being like, sorry, can't make it to the movies. I have to go to the opera on Friday. I'm just like, okay, cool. So she likes it. And she also got a signed picture from Rodney Gilfrey that she's hanging up instead of the art that we saw in the cold open.
So it's still hating on the end. The end of the day is like everybody still hates modern art, but subculture is okay.
One of my favorite things to wind up my wife with is whenever modern art comes up, and she's just like, like she went to New York and she said like she went to MoMA and she was just like that was a waste of time.
I loved the MoMA. Aw,
like and I want to go to it too, but she's like it was a waste of time. It's just like it doesn't mean anything. It's just one of her one of her nitpicks, I guess.
Yeah, someone doesn't like exploring the space.
The space between spaces.
The space between spaces.
the what was it? The dialectic between form and formlessness.
Exactly.
All right. Well, while you think on that, listener, and listen to our break here, we'll be right back with an Arthur episode on Arthur. This podcast is supported by listeners like you, and here's how. Over on our social networks, you can follow us and find the latest updates and some fun photos. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits, at ECL Podcast on Twitter, ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com, and Elwood City Limits on Instagram. You can support us monetarily by going over to patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. If you become a patron for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive audio content like our new PBS Kids show, movie reviews, and sneak previews of upcoming content. Support us as well by going to teespring.com/stores/Elwood-City-Limits-store or search Elwood City Limits on Teespring. Buy yourself a t-shirt, a tank top, or a hoodie with the Elwood City Limits logo or an exclusive design by our friend Josh. Elwood City Limits is available online at libsyn.com/Elwood City Limits, or you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. Is it not on your favorite app? Let us know, and you can always help us by spreading the word, tell your friends, and send us a message either on social media or an email, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your continued support. And now, let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back. Now, Lucas, you have made it clear that you are not you have not been pleased with the lack of Arthur content on a show called Arthur recently.
Yeah, I feel like, there's this guy, he's got glasses, sometimes he punches people, he loves to read. I vaguely remember, I feel like we've spent a long amount of time with him, this guy. He's like friends with all the same people we're friends with, but I feel like we haven't seen him in a while.
It's true, and finally, we're getting a little bit of a close-up here on the man who made this all possible with all worked up. And
also, I'll say this, Will.
Yeah.
I'd completely forgotten this was in this episode until I'm looking at the clip right now. It makes sense that we were talking about middling weird sci-fi movies because this episode kind of starts with a mini one.
Yeah, it's Arthur up in space, and Mom Reed is acting as mission control. And she's it's essentially like illustrating the role that she has in Arthur's life of she kind of keeps everything together behind the scenes and allows Arthur to reach for the stars, as it were. She's putting out all these, she's literally like solving problems. She like saves Arthur from like a near-death situation, and then it's just like, oh, the laundry is done as well. Really, the only big observation I had about this was, look at Pal in this little space suit. Oh, he's so cute. But yeah, that's the idea, is that Mom is the mission control of Arthur's life, and just like mission control, you're the best, as he goes to take Pal for a walk in space.
Well, it almost goes wrong though.
Yes, that's what I mean, is that she's kind of solving things from the ground, and like I'm not even sure what goes wrong, but she, does the Geordie LaForge thing of she talks in techno babble and then figures it out.
I enjoyed this. I thought this was a fun, memorable opener.
Yeah, this is all right, and I mean it got us Pal in the spacesuit, so I'm perfectly content. So the matter of this episode is that Arthur has a quiz streak. Like, he's done a bunch of tests back to back in Mr. Ratburn's class and gotten A's or A pluses on them. So Buster and Francine pick up the fact that he has a streak now. I think it's like 5 in a row or something. And, they're asking him, like, how'd you do it? Like, what's your ritual? And he's like, I don't really have one. I don't believe in, streaks.
And I was like, Arthur, pulling up the receipts here, season 1, episode whatever, I seem to remember something about a magic pencil.
Ooh, yeah. It's like, I thought it was a little phony baloney for Arthur to be like, I don't believe in luck. But what I knew was going to happen was that as soon as Arthur, also, you never know, this could be the chronology of Arthur is completely out of whack. This could have happened before the magic pencil, for all we know. But I feel like the mere suggestion to Arthur that luck might exist, and he's going to take it way too seriously. Like, I was like, oh, great, you mentioned a streak to him? Now his life is ruined.
Now because Francine's pretty serious about her streaks, talking about how athletes don't change their socks or whatever. Yeah. I would just say that, at first, it turns out that's not what this episode's about at all. At first, I was initially worried, because I was like, this sure does seem like the magic pencil all over it, because I feel like at the start of the Magic Pencil episode, Arthur doesn't believe in the Magic Pencil's magic either, right? Like, I feel like that episode has a very similar trajectory where he's like, oh, whatever, yeah, the pencil's not that magic. And then eventually he gets, like, Buster and everybody, like, fawning over it convinces him, and he starts to buy into it.
Yeah, exactly. So Arthur, he's not even sure if there was something in his life that caused a streak. Like, he doesn't even know what that would be. And he's other than studying, which is the real answer. So at dinner that night, Mom Reed announces that she is going to be working from an office downtown for the next few weeks, which reminded me, like, I forget that Mom Reed is self-employed. Like, she works as an accountant.
Well, self-employed, but mostly she could work for a firm, but she's mostly
like she does
home.
Right. She works from home, and with this one, she's like, she got a new contract where she's working for a few weeks with an office.
Yeah.
And yeah, so self-employed, but also like frequently does like contract work, and I'm sure probably does her own taxes since she's an accountant. And that part of her life is so not often brought up. And then I was like, wait a second, like, I have a new way to relate to the show because I too am self-employed and work from home. And I was like, I would love to get a cool contract like Mom, even for a few weeks.
She said something about how excited she is to work in an office again, and I'm sure you could speak to this too, Will, where you're like, maybe working from home, you kind of crave the structure and the normality of working from an office. But as someone who is currently working from an office and had kind of the inverse happen to me last week, where I had the brief opportunity from working from home, I was like yelling at the screen being like, no, you fool. Like, you don't know how good you have it.
No, don't get me...
I suppose the grass is always greener.
No, don't get me wrong. I have no desire to work back in an office again. Like, it's more the idea of having steady work. Like, I'd rather have that work at home.
Yes.
But I do not miss the office at all. So Mom's going to be kind of out of commission for the regular role for a few weeks. So, this is initially a big shock to DW of like, who's going to watch Mary Moo Cow with me? But it's like, it's okay. The dishes aren't going to, like, they're not going to starve or anything like that. Mom's just not going to be around in the day, but she'll be there in the morning and there at night.
There's this great moment where, like, when DW is like shocked, where like time stops. And, like, Arthur does little moments like this so well, like, just, like, fun little animation, just kind of, like, scripting, pacing moments where, like, the world stops, and, like, apropos of nothing, they zoom in on a drippy faucet and watch, like, one drip down from the faucet, and I thought, like, oh, that's, like, just so smart for, like, a kid's show, just to, like, hang on that moment like that. Like, a kid probably, like, doesn't appreciate that joke as much as This is playing into that first episode where it's like, with my adult sensibilities. I really, really appreciated the way they conveyed sort of the kid's shock.
I think that's a good point, and to be honest with you, I didn't even really notice it myself, but I'm seeing it, kind of watching it in the background here. That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So that is a big change that's happening in Arthur's life. He's taking it fine, like it doesn't really bother him too much. But he has a pop quiz about a reading that he was supposed to do the next day in class, and he ends up getting a C on it. So then his streak is broken, unfortunately. 5-1. So he's starts to think about like what might be going differently in his life that might be making this change. So Dad is kind of taking over some of Mom's roles. Like, for example, he is making their lunch, which comes to Arthur like it's like this sweet baguette sandwich wrapped in like a swan napkin.
Yeah, I thought this was like
what's? And they're like, what's that? He's like, my dad packed my lunch, and I'm like, wouldn't you want that?
So I'm glad that you pointed that out because I thought that was weird as well. What they're trying to do with this quick montage is kind of just convey like how things are different with Arthur's mom. But if they're trying to make things seem bad, they failed miserably because like I guess typical Arthur, he's worried about what other people think. I would be stoked. I would be over the moon. You know what I mean?
This sandwich looks great, and like it's not even like, oh no, my dad made like tuna upchuck surprise or whatever the hell. It's a perfectly acceptable sandwich, like on a baguette, and it's just like, yeah, he didn't make anything weird, and you're still complaining about it. But that's kids, I guess. It's also changed because Arthur and DW get into a fight, and they call for Mom, but then remember she's not there, so they have to call for Dad. Which I love that them calling for Mom is like the show's in-joke. Like they've poked fun at that before, and it's just something that they keep doing, but also like hang a lampshade on from time to time. You know, he's kind of talking about how weird things are with Buster and Binky. And, you know, and Buster's like, Binky apparently had a point where his mom was working a bit more, but they had more money coming in so they could buy like a new TV and stuff like that. And Buster's like, yeah, that might mean that you have to eat takeout a bit more. And again, I'm like, that sounds great. I would love to eat takeout more. I'm always a fan of more takeout.
Yeah, like, so far,
I love home cooked meals. Don't get me wrong, but like, don't threaten me with a good time of like Chinese food 3 nights a week. Sign me up.
No, I don't disagree. I think they're really not making the most of this situation. You know, when life gives you lemons and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of leads into the dream that Arthur has that night, which is, you know, the kind of the worst case scenario of what happens when Mom gets like this high powered job that she doesn't want to leave. Like he says at one point, like, what if my mom doesn't want to leave? And I'm like, well, good news is she said it's a contract for a few weeks, so she's gonna. Like, I don't like.
Yeah, but I think Arthur, like, this plays kind of into like the kids' misunderstanding of how that stuff works because I think I think someone mentions that whether it's Arthur or Buster, he's like, well, it's only a temporary contract, and I think Buster, he's like, well, yeah, but what if she likes it so much? And I think that can be explained away as like kids don't know how jobs work.
That's true, but like at the end of the episode, mom is like, yeah, I decided I didn't really like working in an office, and I'm like, so what? You gave up on the. You have 2 weeks left on that. Just ride it out.
Oh, no, I just assumed, like, this episode takes place over the course of 3 weeks.
All right, okay. Fair. That could absolutely be true. So in this dream, basically, the house is a mess. Dad makes this weird, like, meatloaf thing for dinner, and Mom is this, like, high-powered, like, apparently, like, she became the president of the company or something because she keeps taking these phone calls and being like, this minor thing is wrong? You're fired. You made this minor screw up? You're fired.
It's very Vince McMahon-esque, yes.
Leading to Arthur giving her somewhat warm coffee, and she's like, this coffee isn't hot? Arthur, you're fired.
As she's about to climb into a chopper to get to a meeting in Crown City.
Climbing out of the window to get into the chopper. There's just a note here of like, I know this is Arthur's dream, but it's interesting how Arthur and DW don't like to give Dad his due as a provider. It's not just the fact that, like, sometimes he makes weird food, but it's, like, the fact that basically the house becomes a pigsty without Mom there. I would really hope that, you know, we've got lots and lots of seasons of Arthur left to go. I would love to see an episode where they talk about gender roles sometime.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
because I feel like, I mean, and I'm not I'm not, slapping the episode's wrist because it's not woke or something like that. But it's just like, I would hope that we get to that at some point, because I feel like, as an older show, Arthur can sometimes be like, yeah, the mom does the cooking and cleaning, and dad kind of does, the more manly stuff.
I see what you're saying.
Wait. Which it does kind of, which it already kind of jumps over, because dad is a caterer, so he makes food professionally. But right here it's like, well, mom cleans everything and dad apparently does jack. So it's not a huge problem or anything. It just kind of made me hope that sometime, hopefully, I'd like to see how Arthur can tackle the issue of gender roles in a way that kids can understand, because you can totally do that.
No, I see what you're saying. You're not calling it sexist or anything. You're just saying
No.
these early episodes of Arthur, they have big like Cascade commercial energy, where it's like, "Oh, I don't know how to do the dishes. Oh, I'm so stupid. I understand. It's got spots. What, they're not supposed to have spots? I don't understand how it works."
Well, yes, and this is also Arthur's imagination, so again, I'm not expecting an 8-year-old to be like completely up on gender stereotypes and stuff like that, so he's just like, yeah, mom does the cooking and cleaning and takes care of the baby, and dad does other stuff. Whereas, dad takes care of Kate throughout the episode. He's taken care of Kate dozens of times, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, just hope we see that at some point from a episode of Arthur a bit later on. Another sign of mom's change is that she gets a new hairdo, which completely surprises the kids. And I completely relate to this, because I remember my dad, when I was little, had a certain pair of glasses he would wear, but then every once in a while he would switch it up and wear another pair, and he looked like a completely different person to me.
Oh yeah, fit check on Arthur's mom. She looks like she goes to the local art school in town, NASCAD. I can see her taking one of those mirror selfies where she puts her foot up on the counter. You know what I'm saying? Wearing this getup.
Oh, man.
She got the bob. She's got the bell bottoms. This is a sick fit.
Right on. Yeah, so mom has this new do, and she's talking with DW in the bathroom about how, one of the things that DW apparently does with mom is watch Mary Moo Cow, and she says dad doesn't even like Mary Moo Cow, which I was like, newsflash, kid, neither does your mom. But mom puts on a good face, and she's like, some people just don't understand the inner complexities of Mary Moo Cow. And I was like, really good answer. She handled it very, very well. So in order to kind of help DW acclimate to this a little more, she nominates her as her personal assistant, which DW takes on for the rest of the episode. Great career goal for her. I think that she very much has the energy and the assertive nature to be an effective personal assistant.
So I loved this whole section, right, with this DW being the personal assistant, because for a couple of reasons. I think that the way we think and talk about office culture has really changed since the late 90s and early 2000s. I don't know where I saw this, but it might be a Ringer thing or something, but there was some YouTube video about how there's a bunch of movies in the late 90s all about offices, and that kind of thing has gone away. There's Office Space, and the start of The Matrix, and
yes,
I'm blanking, but there's a bunch of these movies that are all kind of fetishized.
There was an adaptation of Hamlet that took place in an office.
Yeah, they fetishized 90s office culture, and to an extent the early 2000s too. And so this whole sequence is kind of the last bastion of that, where we don't have these kind of office hijinks anymore, where it's mom sending DW a fax that says stop calling me at work. I think DW says something about
control center.
She doesn't say battle station. I think she says this is my control center or something. But all I could think about was DW taking a picture of that desk and posting it on Reddit r/battle stations, where everybody posts their oh, here's my 3-monitor water cooled PC.
Right.
And it's just a picture of DW's desk.
I also found it interesting here. There's a moment that mom has with Arthur where he's trying to do his homework, and he's a bit standoffish, but she asks him what he's doing, and then that kind of leads to him telling her that I don't like that you took this job because you're away all the time and things are different now. And it's interesting that we had to kind of frame this around Arthur having a streak because it's a pretty understandable thing for kids to be upset about that you could just kind of tackle on its own without not to say that the streak thing is like it's bad that they did it. It's just interesting that they felt that they wanted to include that, because I feel like the more interesting part of this episode is Arthur being more upset than he realizes that mom isn't around in the way that she is. And I think that's a very relatable anxiety for a child to have. I think I probably had that at one point in my life as well.
I think, and that's kind of why they have to use this framing of the streak. They actually do Arthur his due diligence of making him see kind of more adult than DW, and that, like you said, it would make sense that DW would be so upset. When I was DW's age, I would get mad when, like, my parents would drive each other's cars.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can't drive that. That's mom's car. Like, just these irrational, like, you crave these kind of patterns and systems. Whereas, like, Arthur's older enough that he, like, he should be able to just kind of get by with his mom going to work all the time. So that's probably why they had to introduce this concept of, like, the streak to make Arthur uncomfortable, because otherwise it just would make him seem immature.
But I still think it's pretty related, and they handled it fairly well. And like his talk that he has with mom in his kind of dark room, I thought was very down to earth, and I really appreciated it. So when mom's kind of away, like you said, there's the gag of DW continually calling mom and then getting a fax to stop calling her. They're trying to both monopolize the kitchen table. Like Arthur needs to study for a test, but DW needs it for her control center. And then they accidentally end up breaking the egg timer that Arthur was using to time his studying. But then he realizes that DW can count to 10. Which I think is something fairly new. So he uses her as like a human egg timer. Like, so he'll like do 10 seconds on one page and then go to the next one. And he used that to test himself. And they end up working together, and it leads to a more effective form of studying that they kind of just come to by accident.
This whole argument, like with Arthur coming to the realization, like they're annoying each other and she starts counting. There's this great low angle that I love where it's like the shot is below Arthur and DW, and it's one of those things where it's like usually cartoon characters, because of their 2D, you're used to only seeing them from certain perspectives, so when you see them from a different perspective they look weird. And this like shot from below DW and Arthur where it's like the bottoms of their mouths is like kind of crazy looking, like it makes them look like Muppets or something. But I was like, oh, like this is like another fun little artistic choice of like, let's have this weird like Citizen Kane camera in the ground low angle for this convo.
Yeah, it seems the animators were given a little bit more freedom to kind of do things a little bit differently. That's not a bad thing at all. And so the end of the episode is Arthur and DW going into mom and dad's room while they're sleeping on like a Saturday or something. And Arthur got an A+ on his most recent test, which means that the streak is back. And it's kind of like, they were able to do it themselves despite the changes in Arthur's life. And then mom reveals that she doesn't really she didn't like working in an office as much as she thought. So everything's going back to normal. I remember seeing these final 15 seconds. I saw this so many times when flipping through the channels. Like,
really?
This is kind of strange. Like, it's that whenever I would see, oh, it's the end of an Arthur episode, what's going on? And then it would be this one, and it's like, you got an A+ on this test, and DW going, we have a streak. And I'm like, what happened in this episode? Like, seeing that removed from context.
Is DW talking about like a sports event in the 70s and like someone's running naked across the field? What is
it's like, why is mom in bed and why does she look sick? Like, why are they talking about a streak? Like, what is any of this? And this was after I'd stopped watching Arthur. So I was like, I don't know what any of this means. So this was cool to finally get the context for what it all meant. Like, seeing that for years, the tail end of that episode, and never understanding it.
And great visual gag here, just a little fun cherry on top, where we get the circle, like, closing in to close the episode, and it just closes it on, like, Arthur's dad just sleeping through this whole thing.
Yeah, good on him. He's clearly been through the ringer. That's a skill. That is a dad skill right there. All right, that's the end of that episode. Let's take a look back at Lights, Camera, Opera. How did this one strike you?
I liked this episode. I thought it was a good use of Muffy. I thought it was like a really odd choice of subject matter. Like, I don't know what the moral of this episode is. I suppose, like you said, it's like try something before you write it off. But like the subject matter of like, yeah, like the opera, like high art culture, that could be fun even though it seems boring. I was like, yeah, okay, like I was here for it. I think this episode, it's definitely like anything I know about Carmen, I definitely knew from watching this episode as a kid and never, looked up more about. So it was fun to return to kind of my one reference point for this famous thing. And I think that's valuable in itself. That's like educating kids on this thing that they're not going to learn about otherwise. So, and I like Binky's role as like the kind of guy who likes opera. I liked all the gags with the modern art. I love like the musical sequences. I think it's a fun episode. It goes by really quickly. Sometimes like the episodes with like the second half is all parody, like they tend to drag, I think. But this one, like, it's like done in a blink of an eye. I thought it was paced really well. It's not like my favorite or anything, but I think it's a really good episode.
I liked it. I like, again, it's one of those weird out of nowhere of just like, hey kids, want to learn about opera? And like, okay. And I feel like this is becoming a calling card of Arthur, is that every once in a while you learn about something either as a kid or as an adult that you're like, I have no idea why this is here, but I'm happy to learn more about it, I guess. And it was kind of interesting, especially to see how they presented it to kids. I'm so curious about the backstage elements of this. I'd love to talk to somebody who was involved in the making of this episode and kind of how, like, what it took, because it's the songs that they create are much more involved. I'm sure it involved a lot more singing on people's parts. And I'm just really curious how it all came together. But like I said, I love it when the message is try something because you never know if you'll like it or not, because honestly, it's true. And it never stops being true, no matter what age you're at. And we all get kind of stuck in like, I don't want to do that, or like, I don't want to try that. But, it's really good to kind of get out of your comfort zone every now and then and just say that you did, at least, even if you don't like it. So I appreciate that still being a lesson that's taught. I liked talking about whatever the hell the name of that episode was.
It's called All Worked Up, which isn't a great... I can see why you forgot that title.
I like talking about All Worked Up. In fact, I think I like it better now that we have kind of talked it through a bit more. I felt that the problem for me was kind of something I already mentioned, is that the real heart of this episode is Arthur's life changing in a way and him reacting to that. And it's kind of done through this lens where I found the whole thing about the test streak a little bit distracting. And because by the time they got into, Arthur, the surprisingly sincere scene where Arthur is like, I don't like that you're not here anymore. And I was like, oh, this is what this episode was about? I kind of got fooled by what it was before. I think there's a lot of fun parts, and I'm really glad that you called out the animation. I wish that was something I noticed a bit more on my watch of it, but I see what you're talking about. But I thought there were some good gags. I did like the message that part of this episode was about, but then I felt like it kind of undercut itself at times. So I liked what it tried to do, but I don't think it was completely successful. Otherwise, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's an interesting subject matter to tackle. Lots of cool things, like in terms of like having a parent that works from home, having your parents' kind of work situation changed. Again, much like tackling opera, a fun like kind of childhood lesson that only really I've seen tackled by Arthur, right? Not seen by any other kind of equivalent kids show. That being said, I feel like this one wasn't as much of a home run as Lights, Camera, Opera. Like there are parts where it's a little bit slower, it drags a little bit, or it's a little bit predictable. But like you said, some really fun like animation moments in this one. I guess not like basically not as much as a slam dunk, but still both kind of enjoyable, totally passable episodes.
Yeah, there you go. It's not the strongest week, but also not the weakest. There's definitely a lot to talk about there. And speaking of a lot to talk about, well, we're out of things to talk about for this edition of the show. Thank you very much for joining us for this one. But, I'm really looking forward to what we've got coming up next week on Patreon, because next week is our Patreon week, which means we are going back to the as yet untitled PBS Kids podcast. And this one was a Lucas choice. We're going to be talking about Fetch with Ruff Ruffman, which I didn't know was a game show.
Oh, yes. It's what is it called? Like adjacent in terms of children's game shows.
Oh, now we're talking. All right. So yeah, we're going to be talking about an episode of Fetch with Ruff Ruffman, and that's over on patreon.com/Elwood City Limits if you want to hear all of the upcoming episodes of the PBS Kids podcast. And, of course, when we return to ECL in 2 weeks' time, we will be talking about... Why did I close my notes for this?
I know. I closed my notes, too. I'm, like, trying to find the quote. I'm, like, scanning through the episode. Anyway.
So, yeah, we are going to be talking about the episode titled Arthur Makes Waves, and it came from beyond. So there you go. It looks like we've got another Arthur episode in the chamber.
Let's hope they're here to stay.
They heard us. They heard you. So they're listening to you. We have to keep that in mind. So don't say anything too loud if you don't want it to happen on the show, because it might just.
I'll keep that in mind.
No pressure. All right, that's going to do it here for Elwood City Limits. Thanks everybody for listening, and it's good to have you back, Lucas. As much as I liked having Andrew here on the show, it's not the same without you.
It's good to be back. I can't find my notes, but I believe at some point Muffy says something about how she looks like pudding in her new dress. Something to that extent.
It's like Prunella says or Francine says you look like tapioca pudding or rice pudding or something like that.
So just picture I chirped in with that at the end of the episode.
So that's Lucas Mancini. My name's Will Young. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.